This episode is brought to you by LLAMAWOOD. LLAMAWOOD is building a bridge between premium firewood and your fireplace by making it super easy to get bulk firewood delivered right to your woodpile. I became excited enough about this company that I've been an early advisor to them since before they were founded in 2020. Their intuitive online firewood delivery marketplace provides an easy way to burn more fires because you get access to highly vetted suppliers all across Virginia. Each are ready to deliver premium seasoned and kiln dried firewood right to your woodpile with a 100% money back guarantee. That's risk-free firewood delivery, folks. You got to try it. LLAMAWOOD also lets you easily subscribe to weekly deliveries, earn rewards every time you shop, and they even sell log racks that they will fill up with wood for you. They are truly a one-stop shop for enjoying life around the fire and keeping your woodpile tidy. For a limited time, Learning to Dad listeners, that's you guys, can get $50 off when you place your first order. Book your wood delivery today at llamawood.com and use code L2D at checkout. Again, that's L2D at checkout at llamawood.com to save $50 off your first order.
First off, I love my kids.
This is Learning to Dad.
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
With Tyler Ross.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
You hear that? Recording in progress. It's on, my brother.
On.
Hunter Guerin, awesome to see you, man.
Tyler Ross, glad to be here, man. First of all, I want to thank you for everything you've done for LLAMAWOOD and me. You know, when I reached out to friends and family about doing research, you have been like so helpful. Every time I email that group, you're always the first to respond, and you will spend hours just talking to me about this business, which is really helpful when you start something by yourself. So I really appreciate it. And this guy is the best kid book author I know. My son is obsessed with donkey. I want the donkey book. So
that's awesome. Thanks, man.
You've been great to me, so I'm honored to be here.
No, I'm excited to talk to you. And I was afraid if before we hit record, we could have just gone on and on. But for folks listening, Hunter and I are high school friends, and we haven't gotten to spend as much time together, but I've always enjoyed being around you, and anybody that's ever met your wife, Katie, I know adores her too. So I'm pumped to talk, man. So, and it's so much fun watching you build this business. I'm excited to get into it. Like, tell me what the latest is.
Yeah. So, I started LLAMAWOOD in April of this year. So sort of mid COVID, and at the end of fire season, really kind of fire pit season at that point. So LLAMAWOOD is a firewood delivery service. We have suppliers all throughout Virginia. And so it's a network of highly vetted suppliers. And so customers come to us and can easily place an order for firewood delivery online with a credit card or Apple Pay. And then we deliver to the customer through that network. And so we're really sort of spreading business around to a lot of small businesses around Virginia and Maryland and DC right now. And it's, of course, September, now heading into October. So we've been very busy, to say the least. And we just have loved being in Richmond. Richmonders apparently love their firewood and fireplaces and fire pits. So, we've been serving a lot of customers, been growing really fast, and have some awesome suppliers. So it's been a lot of fun.
So, because I feel like last time we talked, you were maybe hadn't even launched LLAMAWOOD yet. And you started in Richmond, and then kind of it's grown up a little bit from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we were talking in probably March and April, as I was really starting to get it off the ground. We originally were talking last year, and I think the fall of last year, when I was doing research with a program here in Richmond called it's out of Startup Virginia, and the program was called Idea Factory, and it was it's sort of a baby or mini incubator, and LlamaWood was accepted into the first cohort. So we were kind of doing customer research and learning, is this a opportunity, and do people really need this, and is there a problem? But it sort of all started with the question of why is it so hard to buy good firewood? It's you can buy a fire pit online and it shows up at your door the next day. So why is it so hard to get good wood to burn in that fire pit? Now you can go to the local hardware store or the grocery store and get the $7 to $10 bundles. But if you have a lot of fires, obviously that's not economical. So and after talking to guys like you and suppliers, it seemed that there was a need for this. And so I went full time on it in April. And, like I said, that was the end of fire pit season. And then obviously we headed into the warmer months. But that gave me time to build the network and build the tech to prepare for the fall. And it's actually a really good thing that I had that time because, there's a lot of moving parts right now. And so
you work out some kinks over the summer. You kind of had was it almost like a beta launch in April? So, you walk into all these small businesses and there's a $1 framed on the wall because that's the first dollar that business ever had. Like, tell me about that moment for you.
Yeah. So should I not count family?
Yeah. Let's get your first non-familial, the first non-family you gave wood to.
Yeah. So I'll tell you
not the
stories.
First of many puns.
First of all, Dad, if you're listening out there, Dad was my first order, I believe. But since then, he just asks me for wood and I just give it to him. So he might not be my first dollar because I'm not sure I ever got that dollar. But so the first real dollar was Daniel Ebert out of Washington, D.C. He is my wife's coworker. So I have never met him. So to me, he's a stranger at that point. He was also the first network delivery that I did myself. I'm sorry, first network delivery that was done on my behalf.
So you were delivering wood personally.
I personally delivered as many loads as I could in the Richmond area to really learn the customer and know what it's like to be a supplier. I've had cords and cords of wood delivered to my parking pad here. And then I go out and do a delivery, sometimes just with my 4Runner carrying like a small load and sometimes renting a trailer and carrying a big load. I know this podcast is about being a dad, so I will certainly tell you a story related to that. But so the first actual customer, probably the first dollar, Dan Ebert out of DC. And then here in Richmond, I delivered to some friends. So let's not count them, but I had a non-friend delivery and my in-laws showed up. It was around Easter. So it's kind of chilly at night. They sat down to have a beer and it was about 7 or 8 PM. And I said, well, I've got to go out and do a delivery. And so here I am at like 8 PM stacking wood on this guy's wood rack. And I got this, like I'm getting them now. I got these goosebumps because I'm looking at his outdoor fire pit. It was actually a beautiful outdoor fireplace. And I see he's just sodded his yard and I'm delivering this beautiful dry wood that I know is an incredible product. And I know when he puts it in that fireplace, it's going to burn. And I could see the couch around the fireplace. And I just got all warm and fuzzy because I knew that when he got home, he was on vacation. He was with family for Easter. When he got home, he'd be able to sit by that fire with whomever, and throw the log on and it would light and it would just be, a great night. So that was a moment of, really feeling like I'm doing it, it's, so Andy, if you're listening, that might be the first dollar that really, that I could really feel. And so I have amazing customers. I love, every one of them. But that one was special.
That is awesome. And I love that the fire pit itself gave you like an emotional feeling to see it. And this is one of those things where we talk about it offline, but I'm going to throw it out there now. I'd love to see the Llama Wood Instagram page or anything with just like shots of every fire pit that gets delivered to. And like
Yeah.
that, I'm like, that gives me goosebumps thinking about all
Yeah.
these people. So are you splitting any of this wood yourself?
I have not to date. I don't think I have split a single log.
For you, but you've
So-
delivered countless loads.
You know what? Actually, I take that back. One time I delivered to a guy who had old logs, and he was talking about how ugly his old fire pit, his old firewood was. And I had an axe in the car, and I was like, let me just chop that up for you so that I could then stack it, with his other stuff. Cause it was these big logs,
Yeah.
you see a lot of that stuff on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist,
Mhm.
where, the guys are delivering wood from their backyard, and it's fine, but it's often not the beautiful sort of fire ready product that I think a lot of people expect nowadays. So I chopped that, and that was actually I enjoyed doing that too.
Well, I
They
probably
say-
have. Yeah.
There's this book, Norwegian Wood. It's actually behind me, written by a guy named Lars, Scandinavian, and it's a 180-page book about firewood. So
No kidding.
niche is, you can go as niche as you want in this world, and or niche. And it's, he talks about chopping firewood. And he said it's actually it's meditative. It's therapeutic. You can have the worst day at work or with kids or whatever's going wrong with your day, and then you can go out back and just chop firewood, and it all goes away. It's this kind of, you have to be kind of a psycho a little bit, because you're breaking apart a organic object with a brute 30-pound maul, crushing a log. It's kind of, you kind of feel like a lunatic, but it's the best brain shower, I think, out there.
There are three things me and my dad are really good at. One is 2-on-2 basketball. Another is real estate deals. And the third is we can split the shit out of some wood. We'll take anybody head to head on some wood splitting. But
Awesome.
so you're doing all of this. Yeah. And I have 3 cords at my house right now, and it's mostly shit. Like it doesn't burn. It's half wet. Like it's not fully seasoned. So I might have to read that book, get an understanding of what's going on. Maybe you'll write the second edition of it.
Yeah.
But what is it that you gave up a hell of a gig to, deliver wood at the last minute on 8 p.m. on a Saturday? Like what were you doing before you cut loose and started LlAMAWOOD?
Yeah. So out of college, I was a mechanical engineer for a defense contractor up in the DC area for about 9 years. And then I joined in 2017, January 2017, I joined a marketplace startup in the DC area that was focused on manufacturing. And so I was a product manager, which is sort of somebody who comes up with the customer needs, the requirements, to then work with the development team and designers to build the software products that can help customers. So like Uber, Uber Eats, great example. Product managers kind of help define what the app does and looks like. So I was doing that for a marketplace for the customer side because I was an engineer, and so I sort of had an understanding of what the customer needs. And in when was it? July of 2020, right?
About a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Yeah, a little over a year ago. We moved to Richmond, Virginia. We were in DC. We were in a tiny row house. We were living in, my wife and I and our, at the time, about 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old. We're living in about 700 square feet of DC row house. And COVID hits in March, and we have a little river house down in the northern neck. And on Thursday, we said, let's go down to the river and and just spend the weekend. And so we packed our weekend bags and we took our son down the river, and we never came home. We lived there for 3 months, and we found out we were pregnant with number 2 in April, which was April 1st is when I found out. And later that month is my wife's birthday and our anniversary, like back to back. So it's a really exciting time. And of course, we're mid-COVID. And I said to Katie, what do you want to do for your birthday? And she said, why don't we go to Richmond and look at houses? And I said, all right, let's do it. And so we drove to Richmond. We got here and we called our friend who's a real estate agent down here to let us into a house. We saw a few that day. We saw one the next day on MLS, which you know all about. And Katie and I were both in Zoom calls all day. And I'm like, funny enough, my wife and I have our own Slack channel to communicate.
Do you really? That's great.
So I'm slacking Katie. I'm like, this is the one. This is the one. And so we drove to Richmond later that day, had a beer at Vale Brewery, saw the house, put an offer in. They accepted the next day, and we were to the races. So we moved down here, and it was really a life move. You know, we had great gigs in DC, and it was just a feeling. You know, I was like, what do Brad Feld, a investor, I was listening to an interview with him, and he talked about this term topophilia, which is love of place. And I think that's, you know, people were always, why'd you move to Richmond? What are y'all doing? And I was like, it's a feeling and a place that we want to raise our family. And it just, you know, we just felt this love of this place. So we moved down here, and I started talking to all sorts of people around Richmond, because I wanted to be, now we're in Richmond and we're all working remote for our jobs in DC. And I really wanted to join this community. And I didn't necessarily want a job. I just wanted to find a way to use whatever little skills that I had in like my own unique way. I wanted to be able to use them to make this community, you know, to become a part of the community and to help. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I talked about this a lot, actually, on Tommy's bachelor party. What's up, Tommy?
Yes.
And you were off doing your own thing, and you were just like, it's, you know, talk to me anytime. It's, you know, just like you would love it. Like, so I'm thinking, and I did the idea factory, and ideas like then I'm talking to all my friends like you and suppliers, and I'm getting texts from people like a message on Facebook Marketplace. Does anybody know a good firewood supplier? And then somebody would send me a picture of wood that's not burning. And then one of my friends in DC told me about a time where like the delivery truck just never showed up. And he was like, how do you get to your house? And my friend's like, just Google it. So it was all this synergy. And then I get this call from a connection, and the guy says, I love this idea. I think that this has legs, you know, I'm interested in investing, you know, let's talk about it. And while we didn't do anything on that front, I went back to my wife and I said, I'm getting this like guy that's, you know, wanting to help me, and I think I can do this. And my wife, actually, we were on the beach, and she started pushing me, and people started looking,
pushing you, physically pushing you.
Beating her husband. And she said, you know, if you don't do this now, like, you'll never do it. We're only getting older. These kids are only going to get more demanding. Life only gets harder. So try now. And, you know, obviously I'm extremely fortunate to have a wife that has that mentality. And, you know, if it fails, get another job, whatever, we'll figure it out. So that was kind of the moment. And it's always a dream of mine to be an entrepreneur. And, you know, if you're going to work for 40 years, you might as well love what you do. I've got 40 left, or however many left. And so figuring out now what I love, you know, will make the rest of my life better. So, while it seemed a little crazy, and it seemed crazy, and it's crazier than it seemed. But you know, I just saw it as a once in a lifetime opportunity and took it. I have a good friend here, Casey, who's also a dad of one, who runs a business. And I talked to him about how, like, you only have so much time with your kid. What, you know, do you regret doing this? Like, is it that important for you to have this company and miss out on some of the memories that you can make with your kid. And he said, a fairly long conversation summarized into, it's crazy. Yes, you spend a lot of time, you have to make some sacrifices, but it's the best decision I ever made. And so that really helped me to understand that this guy's a great dad. His daughter is amazing. And we're good friends. And I just kind of felt like you, exactly just like you. It's like, you can have kids and start a company and sort of be a little crazy, and still make it. And I've gotten a lot of help along the way, with a lot of different people, which I don't know how deep we're going to get on this conversation, but I will go into it. And, it's hard having kids, just having kids in general is hard. Even if you didn't have a job, it's super hard. It's hard on dads, hard on moms. I can't even imagine what it's like being a mom. But the sort of advice that I got just recently was that every dad has the exact same issues that I have with Katie and our kids. He suggested actually joining Reddit groups about, there's like Reddit groups about being a dad. And, we were going through there was like a tough day that I won't get into a ton of specifics, but basically I was talking to him about it. And he said, the exact same dynamic, the exact same thing is going on in my house. And joining this group really helped because it makes you realize that every dad is going through sort of a similar thing at home. Obviously the context is a little different, but so knowing that everybody sort of all dads sort of have these challenges. But his advice was, and I loved it, is that it's really hard, but that's why communication is so important. And just talking it out, like I was just talking to my wife this morning, that mornings are really busy in the firewood business, because that's when everybody's loading the trucks and planning their routes and changing routes. And today there was a hydraulic leak, and so a bunch of deliveries had to be rescheduled. And I just said to my wife, hey, I think mornings are going to be really tough for me for the next couple of weeks until I kind of get these things figured out. And she said, great, like I'll take mornings. And so I think your question was, what was I doing before? So there you go.
No, that's incredible. I mean, you speak to exactly what the point of this whole conversation is to share that together with other people who, share with the people we share with, because we all share this same thing. And the perspectives that you touch on are also different. And I love that Katie was instrumental in encouraging you and basically like giving yourself permission by her giving you permission is really a special thing, a supportive person like that. And I remember that conversation with you, because we kind of were hanging back and just you and me talking about it, and you were so pumped and enthused, and it's cool to have seen it manifest into what it is now and coming along. But like, tell me like the feelings you felt when you put in your 2 weeks or whatever it was. Like, I'm definitely going to do this. Was it fear, excitement, anxiety? You worried about money or time with your family? Like, what are the things that you thought were at risk, and how'd that ultimately play out? Or it's still playing out, of course.
Yeah, man, all of those feelings you just said. Obviously, I was at my last job for about 4.5 years. It was a startup, so that's kind of long to be there. But saying bye to my coworkers was really hard. But talking to them about this plan, they were so supportive, and it just like that sort of pat on the back really helped. A lot of them live all over the place. And like, as soon as LLAMAWOOD comes to wherever I am, I'd love to buy wood from you. So that was tough. And, I remember actually, because we're all remote now, I've had 2 jobs before starting LLAMAWOOD. And my last job, there was like a going away lunch, and, everybody came together, but
yeah,
I left the job in the middle of COVID. So my last day was like just another remote day. And it was kind of bittersweet. to then go into this thing that I was super excited about. But obviously the last 2 weeks I was closing out loose ends at the job just to make sure that the next person had everything squared away. But I was also driving, like just doing everything I could, building the site, building the tech, getting the infrastructure set up, talking to people here in Richmond. Going back to that idea factory, I reached out to the people that sort of ran that event, which was through Startup Virginia, Startup VA for short, and a company called Builder, and just told them all, hey, I just left my job to go full time on this, like would love to catch up. And the first thing I did actually was talk to you. I called all my friends, actually a lot of high school friends, Peter, Tommy, college friends, Tanner, what's up guys? And just said like, hey, I'm doing this. So Peter, for example, was in sales at SAS. And I was like, I don't know anything about sales, like please school me. And so I actually realized how important friends and your network is when you then sort of move away from a group. You have there's 500 people in my last company and 500 Slacks, coming at me, Zoom calls, and all of a sudden no Slacks, no Zoom calls, and you just have a day, and you have to just be very confident about your priorities, because nobody else is not only giving them to you, but even like helping you decide them. But anyway, so I went out and started talking to all these people. I think I over committed to a couple things because of like the adrenaline. I was just saying that action sort of breeds courage and courage, whatever, courage and joy and excitement, whereas inaction kind of breeds fear and anxiety. And so I took that action approach and just did as much as I could, maybe to hide some of the deeper feelings, and just like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And so I talked to lawyers and I talked to accountants, and all of a sudden I had all these different like contracts that I signed, and it's like, whoa, I just need to sell wood. First I need to sell wood, and then I need to figure out how to deliver it. And so I kind of settled in a little bit, and now we're off to the races.
So tell me about the role of the incubator, because you're the first person I've talked to that's had experience with an incubator like that.
Yeah. So I applied to this incubator after, I first moved to Richmond, and I was looking around at like what was going on in Richmond. I got connected to the executive director of Startup Virginia, Richard Winch, and super nice guy. I biked down there, and he gave me a tour in COVID, and this place is beautiful. It's sponsored by Capital One. It's like 6 floors down in Chaco in Richmond. And there are all these just empty offices. And it's all these different startups that I'd never heard of, like 2, 3, 4 people teams. And there's tons of them. One of them, Hop Drive, they help transport cars from one dealership to the next dealership. It's like, never would have thought of that, but of course that's like super awesome. And there are a lot of car dealership businesses like Car Lots, headquartered down in Richmond. So anyway, a lot of cool stuff going on in this place. And I said, I want to do something. And he said, well, we've got this thing coming up called Idea Factory. Why don't you apply? And I said, oh, I've got all these ideas. Yeah. Let me apply. So I applied with multiple ideas, and LLAMAWOOD got accepted, but I actually didn't realize that. I didn't realize that it was LLAMAWOOD that got accepted. So on my first day, they're like, hello, founders, tell us about your company. And I said, well, which one? Like, which one am I here for?
Way. Yeah.
And they're like, LLAMAWOOD. And I'm like, okay. And then, I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, if you applied with all these different ideas and they picked that one, obviously that one is like that's the idea. So, all right. So basically this is a sort of, there's an incubator here called Lighthouse Labs. There's one down in Norfolk called 757 Accelerate. Both of those give you about $20K of equity of grant funding without taking any equity in the business.
Oh, wow.
And they sort of want you to be a mentor going forward, and as to provide help to all these new founders. And so Idea Factory was basically a crash course in customer research. And so Luke from a company called Builder here sort of led this program to start with, how do you ask the questions to the customers? How do you validate whether this idea is worth pursuing, or how do you identify the opportunities? You may think that you're going to be one thing, and then all of a sudden, through this research, you figure out that it's going to be something else. And so actually, another sort of dad story, my wife and I are on our baby moon to prepare for Margot, our second baby, who was due in December. And I'm emailing all of these people to take this survey. It's basically, do you ever buy firewood online? Do you ever buy firewood multiple times a year? And then you follow that up with, how difficult is it to buy wood online? And then you rank those. So this whole program was about 6 weeks. And so each time we're meeting at 6 to 9 p.m. once a week, I believe. And then you have homework, and then you come back and you do it again. Normally it would be in person, but obviously COVID, it was remote. But it was here in Richmond. And so at the very end, some of the people got together and sort of went to the next step. One of the founders that I was with, Philip, has gone on to do those incubators, those Lighthouse Labs and 757 Accelerate. So it kind of pushed him towards that direction. Those accelerators are awesome, but I came from this background of that there's a lot of really kind of dirty behind the scenes, not techie ways of selling and fulfilling orders. There's a lot of manual intervention, and I think the founder of my old company said something like, you want to validate your business by getting people to buy your product. And so I kind of focused on just immediately selling. And through that incubator, I kept saying, when do we start selling? When do we start selling? Yeah. And they were like, yeah, that's great. Get out there. And I started reading all these books, and Derek Sivers, who I love, has this great book called Anything You Want. And it's 44 pieces of advice about starting a business. And the first one is, if you want to start a school for autistic children, as an example, across the country, start by tutoring somebody for 30 minutes, 1 day a week. Put a flyer in the coffee shop and just start helping one person, because you can't help a billion people until you help one. Mm-hmm. And so, I kind of quickly created this service and sold, one thing to my dad, I think, and then Dan, and then it's other people, and it's whoa, now I've got to find the suppliers, and just started growing from there. But we're on our baby moon, and I'm emailing all of my friends to take this survey, and then just not getting a ton of responses. And my wife goes, have you texted them? And I'm like, no, I'm emailing. It's the professional thing to do. She's like, text them, Hunter. And so I just started texting everybody. You were on it. I have all these different group texts from DC, from high school, from college. And so I'm just sending the survey out, and it just started going nuts. I had 70 people, while I'm sipping my coffee at Willow Grove. And all of a sudden I had all this research, and that's a great example of needing somebody to bounce your ideas off of, including your wife, when you do this kind of stuff, and just sort of having that communication to then solve your silly problems, which is apparently nobody checks email anymore. And so now I've learned the firewood business is all about text. I text.
Is that right?
I text my customer all the time. So anyway, you live and learn, but
that's, So talk to me a little bit about the difference of being an employee versus running the show. How have you changed in the last, it's been 6 months or so? Yeah.
Gosh, Tyler, great. You're good at this.
Thanks.
Have a podcast.
I'm curious. And I like what you're doing. I think it's so cool. I admire you for taking the step to doing it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I have a lot of help. So the first thing I did was I have thought about it forever. And I finally said, I'm going to get an executive coach. And especially if I'm not going to have employees yet, then I need somebody to talk to that isn't my wife, because I have learned talking about work with your wife all the time is a recipe for not fun. You know, as I say, vacation, Katie and I always have this wonderful time on vacation. And I was like, wait, why is that so? Great vacation is great, but it's because we don't talk about work. And it's like, aha. So don't bring your work home, or have some limit. That's one lesson, one difference. But anyway, so I got an executive coach and I started talking to him about all these different things. And it turns out, I think this is an adult program, but he said one time, because I was just, naming a bunch of things, and he said, being an entrepreneur and like sometimes starting a business, the first thing you have to do is figure your shit out. And that's a great summary to your question about like what happened in the first 6 months. What's the difference between being an employee and entrepreneur is, if you haven't figured your shit out yet, and then you start a business, like you are on a crash course to figuring your shit out.
Well, what's that process look like for you? Like, what's the shit you had to figure out?
Man, I think obviously a very obvious one, and one that I care a lot about is financial security. So all of a sudden I have no salary. And, I think first of all, you have to figure out what is exactly your budget? What runway do you have? How are you going to modify your previous lifestyle to fit into this sort of new life? And I think one thing is that when you remove your salary, you have to become really conscious about your spending. And I can name all sorts of things that I used to think that I really wanted or that I really loved. And all of a sudden I was just like, none of that matters. I don't really care about that. And then another thing was, going, let's say maybe you don't have a salary anymore. So maybe vacations become more sporadic, at least at first. And, I was thinking to myself, well, you could go on these vacations, or you could have nice things, but if underneath you're not happy with, your career, your life, whatever, then all these nice things or whatever, they don't even have to be nice, but things don't matter. So let's focus on relationships and people, and minimizing, and so that was a big part of course, the first thing that happens, financial, what are we going to do financially? And then the next thing is why. So, why is I need to do X, but I'm not doing it, or I'm doing Y and I can do it really well. And so you start questioning why am I not doing X, and why do I like Y? What's the motivation? Because at the end of the day, you have all these different things that learned behaviors, or I say this often, the stories that you tell yourself, kind of define your life. And if you've been telling yourself all along that you're a great engineer, or people are telling you stories, you're a great this, you're a great that, and maybe you don't actually believe that you are, and you're sort of doing things to sort of conform to that story that you're telling yourself or that other people are telling you. I think that's that kind of actually leads me into, I was an engineer for 9 years. I was a good engineer, but I don't think I was a great engineer. Then I became a product manager. I was a good product manager, but I don't think I was a great product manager. But I think that a lot of what I was doing was because I was, wanting to do what I thought was the best thing for me to do, or what, the stories that I'd been telling myself. But I think I kind of got tired of pretending to be something that I wasn't. And I sort of changed. I asked a lot of questions, and I sort of changed the story to what do I love? What am I potentially uniquely capable of doing, or what makes me unique? I think one example is Joe Rogan. If you're listening, hey Joe. But nobody nobody else in the world is Joe Rogan. So he took this kind of crazy MMA to podcast to stand-up comedian path, and like he's just has the most successful podcast in the world. So how do you figure out how are you uniquely? Nobody else is Tyler Ross, nobody else is Hunter Guerin. So how do you actually use that identity? And then, again, starting a business, you have to sort of put that out there. So, you have a lot of skin in the game. So the difference, I think, between being an employee and an entrepreneur is it's almost like throwing fuel on the fire. As an entrepreneur, you can't sweep anything under the rug.
Was that like a gradual, as that exploration you were taking on yourself? Was that gradual? Or did you have this like aha moment where you went, oh my gosh, like I'm not doing, I'm not fully satisfied doing this? Or was it like chipping away at you?
Yeah, I think it was gradual. Yeah. And I think a huge thing about either way, if you are a passionate person and you are a hard worker and you have a high standard of work product, like you're going to work hard for an employer or you're going to work hard for yourself. I think actually my executive coach said this, and nothing wrong. In fact, I will go out on a limb and say a full-time job with a salary and benefits is a wonderful thing. It is, that's why it exists. So nothing against that life or that style, but if you are working for somebody else, you are putting all of that effort into some other business's success. Yes, you share in the joy and the success, but you're investing in somebody else's future. And if you sort of go out on a limb and do something entrepreneurial, you're investing in yourself. So I've of course talked about a lot of these things with my coach, and I think there are times where it's like, all right, well, maybe I can do this on the side and go get some kind of safety and some great job here in Richmond or wherever, but then have this as a passion project. And it's and we talked about long-term investments. There are other things that I could have done to make to give myself safety nets, and I chose not to do them because I considered them long-term investments. And he said, "So you don't consider LLAMAWOOD a long-term investment?" I was like, "Yes, I do." And he's like, "Okay." So, but like figuring out that I wanted to do it, I've wanted to do it forever. And I think one thing is like when you have an expectation on yourself and you don't actually do it, you're basically letting yourself down every day, which doesn't feel good. So I think with encouragement and a great wife and great kids who are too young to give me encouragement, except my son always says, "Dad, that's too much fire. That's too much fire." When we pick up firewood together, that's too much fire, Dad. But I wanted to set a great example for the kids. There's a lot of balance between, is this company going to consume so much time that I then don't have that time for the kids? But I always said that that's just a prioritization dance. As Steve Spurrier said, if you choose not to work out, it's not because you don't have time, it's because you didn't prioritize it. So you have to be very clear with your priorities and block off those times. But if you aren't truly happy, or you don't truly feel like you are pursuing your truth, then I think those things carry out in the way you father and your happiness. And so if I want to be like completely there and completely honest with myself, I think this felt more real, and in turn has resulted in my happiness level, going through the roof. And nothing against any former job, but it just feels true and it feels right. It's the most rewarding work I've done. And for better or for worse, I'm spending tons of time with my kids. In fact, my My wife, my daughter has not had childcare because of COVID. And she has been here with us. She's 9 months old, going on 10 months old. And we just got a part-time nanny a couple of weeks ago. So every day I'm holding her, or we're going on a walk. My son is going out with us to pick up firewood. In fact, one time you asked about when I was delivering wood, I had the biggest sales day ever for LLAMAWOOD, and I was going to do the delivery because I was going to use a new supplier, and I was taking wood to he's one of my best customers. So I got to do this in order to vet the supplier. I want to meet them and see the wood and do the delivery myself. And so my wife's out of town, and I come home that morning. I've rented the trailer. I'm going out to the supplier. It's about an hour and 20-minute drive. I sit down to kind of plan my day, and my daughter is asleep. I'm going to take her to my parents for the night, and my son's at daycare. And I get this call at 9:30. Hey, your son just threw up. You have to come pick him up, and he has to stay out of school for 48 hours. So here I am, like, with my wife's out of town. My son's got the throw up bug. I, try for some babysitters. Then I'm like, no babysitter is going to want to hang out with this kid while he throws up all day. So I'm like, all right, buddy, you're coming with daddy. Put him in the back seat. I give him a couple of trash bags, and I say, if you're going to throw up, put your head in this trash bag and don't throw up in my car. And so he gets in the car with me, and we drive a total of, it's about 4 hours that day. I had all these deliveries that I was going to do that night. And he's literally throwing up in this bag. My daughter is 9 months old. She's sitting in her car seat. Like, she's, babies are like, by the end of the trip, June is basically naked. My son's naked, throwing up in bags. My daughter's naked. And I get home, and I just feel broken. And I look up, I'm feeding my daughter, and my son comes around the corner with a gallon of apple juice, but the top wasn't on, and he flips it. I say, put that down, please. And he flips it upside down and just drops a gallon of apple juice all over our living room floor. And, broken, I go to sleep, and I wake up, and I put him in the car, and we go do those deliveries, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're in the back of that car, just watching like Rio on iPhones. I called 2 local high school kids. Hey, y'all got to come help. And they're like, when should we be there? I'm like, right now. And they come over, 3 guys together. It took like 4 more hours to finish those deliveries. I get home, and it's 1 o'clock. I sit down with my son at the breakfast table to give him lunch. And he looks at me and he goes, Daddy, I'm having a great day. And I'm just like, I'll lose it. Yeah. First of all, kids are the most resilient thing in the world. And second is, I was like, I'll never do that. I'll never deliver wood again at the expense of, at that expense. And I think there was a lot to learn in that moment. There are similar things, like COVID has caused this, but as being a dad with a company, you have to think, what are these things that I'm doing that I could just completely stop doing, or I could give it to somebody else who's better at it than I am, delegating and just identifying things. And so all of a sudden, just like in one moment, I quit doing deliveries, and now I have amazing suppliers doing 10 times better job than I ever could. And instead of being out on the road, I get to be here with the kids. So
isn't that amazing? Sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of the way.
Yeah.
Hey, let me pause for a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. I had to tinkle. So we're back. I got my question for you.
All right.
Gary Keller wrote a book called The One Thing. And I didn't particularly care for the book, but there was a concept in there that really kind of resonated with me that you were kind of flirting with, which is the counterbalance. Employee, typical hours, typical day, you get into a routine, you go in, and so that you kind of have your balance established, a groove, a rut, somewhere in between, goes back and forth. But now as the entrepreneur, as the guy, can you speak to me about how your balance in life kind of shifted and what you've done to kind of go with the flow of it?
Yeah. I've also read that book. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. Maybe
But
it's because he's a real estate guy and I'm been out of shape about his business
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. Gary Keller, the one thing. So for some context there, that book is about how do you figure out the single most important thing that you could do every day and just get up in the morning and from 8 a.m. till 12 p.m. just do it.
Mhm.
And then the rest of the day you can do whatever you want.
I have a million things. So the one thing, just say there is no one thing. Yeah.
You know, so I was the same way and I dug into it a little bit. And so, but actually let me do your question first. So the balance you're talking about is that there's this neutral line that goes up from like an x-axis, and on one side you have family and on one side you have career, and life is really like a sine curve of going back and forth. Mm-hmm. So you start going heavy towards your career and then your family life suffers. Then you start going heavy towards your family life and then your career suffers. And one thing he says is that it's never going to be like completely even. Like it's never going to be a pretty mirror image kind of back and forth. It's always going to be heavily skewed towards one for like an extended period of time and then heavily skewed towards the other for an extended period of time. But the thing he says there is that you can lose a job and you'll be fine. But if you lose your family, you can never get that back. And that actually really resonated with me. And I think, first of all, you know, I just had a conversation I mentioned earlier that mornings are really busy. You know, from 6 a.m. until this call, there is a lot of back and forth with all my suppliers who are scheduling their deliveries for the day. And then you need to, and there's, you know, updating. Anyway, it's a busy time. And so my wife's on work travel right now. And we were talking this morning and she said, how's everything going? And I said, you know, mornings are going to be really busy for me. And she said, all right, well, I'll do mornings. And so, you know, don't ever keep score, but I can do evenings. I'll do, you know, I can hang out, I can be kind of on call and doing bath time and bedtime and pick up from daycare. And, you know, I take my son to school every day. My wife would do it and, you know, for any time, but just, I take him to school and I pick him up almost every day. You know, obviously there's some times. So that's one thing. You know, we have that little river house and I'll plan a day where I take my son down or daughter and just have a day and a night and camp in the yard and have fires, of course, s'mores, you know, go on the boat, whatever, just like dedicate really focused chunks of time. But I think also you know, going back to the career coaching, and then of course this is a podcast about dads. And so I'm very open that Katie and I go to marriage coaching. And that started in this, you know, time of me starting this company, but there's so much going on. We moved to a new city. I left my job and started a business. Katie, my wife, has 3 companies, 3 jobs. Yeah. She is full-time employee. She has a job trying to create a statewide trail coalition of bike trails around Virginia called Movement South. And she has an antiques booth here in Richmond. So, wow, a lot going on. Yeah. And so we saw this opportunity to be proactive around, you know, we were looking for, like, of course we were like, we have a great marriage. We're happy, but you know, nobody's perfect, but the best people in the world have coaches. Michael Jordan has a coach.
Yeah. Sell marriage counseling to me. Like, why should I go?
So I will say, first of all, it's marriage coaching.
Coaching.
So coaching, you know, this is kind of what he said, is coaching is like, let's build a playbook, coaching reference. And you're very familiar with, I think you're a coach yourself. So why not have somebody like Tyler Ross that's just there in the room for you to talk about things that you're struggling with, or that you're that you're doing great with. Sometimes it's like a totally positive conversation. And it's also not, I think one of the fears that a lot of guys have is that, I've heard multiple people say, not to name any names, but like, oh, y'all go to marriage coaching. My husband would never do that. Like, first of all, have you asked him? Second of all, if he ever did it, he would immediately want to do it more and more and more. Because what person doesn't want to have this like neutral party just moderate a conversation? Because we all know what happens when you get into an argument is things escalate, you get defensive. We did this great exercise around your fears, and you take a conversation or a disagreement, and you think about in that instance, what were you afraid of? Like, what are your fears? Some examples. You're afraid that you're being judged. Mm-hmm. And then what's your response? And so your response might be to immediately apologize and then say, I love you. Or your response might be to just like get angry or whatever it is. And these words, so these responses were named. So there's like a flight response. There is a minimalization response. There is a aggressive response, whatever. You just have these words. And then you realize that your sort of playbook when you get into a disagreement is to do these three things. And to me, that was like kind of one of the most valuable things we've done in coaching is I was able to define my response to basically any disagreement. And you name these things and you realize that they're just things. Like you and I respond completely differently to stress, to anxiety, to disagreement. Your way of responding is not wrong or better than mine. And just naming it helps you realize, like, again, the stories you tell yourself kind of come out. It's like, how can I change that story? Or don't even change it, because maybe you have a great response to an argument. But now I know that when it happens in the moment, I can go, oops, right now I'm doing this. And now I'm doing that. And pretty soon I'm going to be feeling this, And so going through that together with my wife, I was able to learn her response. And so now as if we ever get into an argument in the future, I can say, well, first of all, what is her fear right now? Like, what fear am I triggering? And now, obviously, it's not cut and dry. So actually, apparently, a really great thing to say is, what are you afraid of? Like, what in this thing, what are you most worried about? Another thing I heard, this is great, is like, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Like, what am I missing? Because, I love you and you are a smart person and we are married for a reason. So I respect all these things. So obviously I'm missing something. Can you help me understand what I'm missing? And that's not like a judgmental question. I learned that from a conversation with this woman from Harvard around a disagreement. What was her negotiation tactics? Obviously as an entrepreneur, a lot of your day is negotiations, contracts, and joint ventures. And I think that's actually going back to your difference in entrepreneur versus employees. One of the really neat things is that as a business owner, a lot of the people you work with, almost every relationship, it's obvious that there's this like mutual benefit to each other. And so your business dealings together are very much like, how can I help you? And so that you help me. And now this happens at work, but a lot of times, people in different teams have different motives, and it can be sometimes hard to see that like your work and their work is mutually beneficial. So anyway, I think that's a little easier when you literally like have to make $1 in order to pay the bills, as opposed to like ensuring that you have a steady income. But marriage coaching, again, long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, it's great.
But marriage coaching is like, at the end of it, often you're getting like this, y'all are doing great, keep up the good work. Like, this is a process. Everybody you know, everybody can benefit from trying to talk it out. But what I was saying earlier is that one of the best things about marriage coaching is you literally get to listen as like a fly on the wall to your wife talk about the things that are really bothering her. And a lot of times, as we know, dads out there, that it's not always our fault. It's not always about us. It could be about something completely unrelated that we just don't realize because we haven't gone there with them. And you can realize that like something that happened in their work day or with the kids really triggered one of those fears. And then, you know, that manifested into some other behavior that, so you can, you just sort of, I said to my coach actually, because when I'm talking to him, you know, he's very, oh man, I understand how hard that must be. And you are like, and let's just acknowledge that this is really tough. And all these like great words that just don't, that sort of communication isn't natural to me. And I wish that it was. And so I said, if I could be like a fly on the wall, or if I could just like have this out of body experience and watch us have this conversation and realize that, you know, not everything, like one of my fears is being judged. Man, really going deep here with you.
Love it.
And so, but a lot of times, what is it? Disagreement to me feels like I'm being judged. And reality is like not being judged. It's that whatever is going on is actually a really difficult thing. And there's some fear that's triggered in Katie, and she just wants to talk about it. And how can I just like pretend like I'm listening to some other couple talk about their fears? And then I would easily go like, oh, Hunter, like,
Yeah.
it's obvious that Katie's really worried about, you know, X. And like, it's obvious that Hunter's really worried about Y. And like, if y'all just do this, you know, no big deal, problem solved.
So what's the difference then? Ego?
Yeah, I think ego is, you know, another great book out there, Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy.
Yeah.
He says that ego is basically the cause of all of your problems. I have this picture, actually, I don't know if you can see that on my wall. Now I have to show you. This is framed in our house.
I love the mosaic mural. Your ego is not your amigo.
There you go.
Hi, for those listening, Hunter has on his wall a framed sign that says, your ego is not your amigo.
Yeah. Big mural in DC that obviously I love. So yeah, I think, but I think that was going back to it, is like being judged triggers. And you know, we can always edit this out. So
no. Tell me what you like. I'm really interested in this because I'm going to investigate it myself and talk to Sarah about it, because I would think that even if it's marriage coaching, it really is making you more aware of in addition to your partner, makes you more aware of yourself, which makes you a better human being. But as far as allowing your coach and your spouse to infiltrate these walls that you've built up, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like, what's the work you had to do to break down the walls? What do you have to do?
So great question. Gosh, again, you should have a podcast. And if Sarah wants somebody to talk to, give me a call.
Thank you.
Big fan. Okay. So one of the things they say, I think they also say this in coaching, in counseling, is that they don't do anything for you. They will never do anything for you. Mm-hmm. You have to do everything. Like, they're not going to change you. You have to change yourself. Again, if you want, like, there are a lot of things you shouldn't change about yourself. And as our marriage coach just said, sometimes your biggest strengths are also your biggest weaknesses. So I will say globally, this experience has helped me realize that my walls are just walls, just like you have walls, whatever your walls are. Some of them, I was talking to my coach and I was like, my walls are probably different than yours. He's like, nope, yours and mine are the exact same. that felt good to hear, but just knowing that like somebody else had my similar walls. But defining them, name your walls. Like, it sounds silly. I always heard the saying, name your fears. Like, oh, I'm afraid of spiders. I'm not actually afraid of spiders, but why would I name like that's silly. So, but name your fear of being judged. Like, what? Like, I didn't even know that was a fear. I've never heard, there's no such thing as fear of being, I don't know, Google it. What is
how'd that get teased out of you to make that acknowledgement?
In that exercise? I don't know. Google, man, I wish I knew what it was. Just like fear, I've done this thing called fear setting, that is is similar. But let's go back to your actual question. Just Google like marriage, argument, fear, I don't know, quiz or something. And so we were thinking about a specific thing. And the question is, what was first of all, define the disagreement. The next question was like, how did that disagreement make you feel? And there was these things. It was like judged, happy, sad, disappointed, minimized, all these different words. And each one had a description of like what that might mean. And that was really helpful for me. And so you do that. And then the next one was, so then how did you respond? And then it was like all these different things. And so it was that exercise that teased that out. And now that was figuring out like some of these walls, like what are these walls that happen? So I'll say mine, again, because I believe that like mine are mine and yours are yours. And don't judge me. That's a fear of mine. How many people listen to this? Don't judge me, but yours aren't any worse or any better than mine. So my response was minimize the person's point of view or argument.
Yeah, I can do that.
Emotionally disconnect. So fine, if you're going to argue with me, then obviously we're not friends anymore. And then third is fix it mode. And fix it mode could be, I actually realized that I was wrong and I try to fix it, or I still think I'm right and I try to go beyond, like fix it beyond the level that it needed to be fixed, almost to say like, see, like I'll do that. And one of my friends, not to be named, was saying that one time he slept in when his daughter was crying, and his wife was like, "Come on, like, aren't you gonna go get her? Like, you just got home from like a weekend with the guys." And so then he's like, "I will get her every morning for the rest of the week, like 5 a.m. I'll just be waiting up." And so he did every day, and it's like that's the fix it sort of spite response. But and so then I think another like wall breaker was a recent conversation of, I can't even remember how this one came up, but something that we were discussing, and it really, I think, communication is huge, regardless of your situation. When you have kids, I think Katie said something like, our life is like, we're like logistics ninjas. It's like, everything we do is logistics,
Yeah, that should be a title of a book.
Logistics ninja.
Yeah.
So communication is key, but then like really being open with your spouse. I think it came up like that. I feel feelings that are sometimes like deeper than I would be willing to share, or that like the actual cause of some of my issues are deeper feelings than like I'm expressing or even communicating. And I think one of the reasons for this is, again, I thought this was an amazing comparison, is that this author was talking about her co-author, and she is very like conflict ready. And her co-author, best friend of 35 years, is conflict averse. So whenever they get in arguments, he goes, "Okay, I guess we're not friends anymore. And then she calls him the next day to like review chapter 5. And he's like, why are you calling me? We're not friends anymore. Weren't you there for that disagreement yesterday? And she's like, friends disagree. That's what they do. Like, come over and we got to edit this chapter. And I think in a lot of ways, I'm the guy that's like, wait, we had a disagreement yesterday. And Katie is like like people have disagreements all the time. Now let's get back to it. And so I guess and then getting into some of the other stuff about like judgment, fear of being judged. What, like, my wife's like, I'm your wife. I would never judge you. Like if anybody is not going to judge you, it's me, you know? And so that like basically was given the opportunity to be like, be like totally open and honest here. Cause like, she's saying that like she's asking you to be. It's like, it's like you are, you know, not sort of giving me feedback in a way that like I even want. Like you just, you know, there's something else there sometimes and I want you to be able to do that, because like, I think I heard this quote too, that conversations are the relationship. Like, and I was like, wow, that's really deep. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
the conversations that you have with your partner, that's your relationship. Like everything else, you're just two people near each other. Right. So, and of course, going back to marriage coaching, and if you're going to be married to Sarah, or if I'm going to be married to Katie for the next 80 years, hopefully we're living that long, like, why not try to make that as good as possible? And so whatever you need to do it. And, you know, I love I'm a like, try it. If it doesn't work, quit, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case, you spend an hour learning more about your spouse. You know, you're not going to get berated by like, you know, you're not going to be told that you're the problem, because you're in a relationship, as we know, two to tango. So, don't fear, you know, either of y'all, I would say, don't fear like, having a negative experience. One other quote, and I'll stop with this, is that everybody has issues. Nobody's perfect. You can either address your issues in the light of day, AKA talking to a coach, or let them like seep out of your ears in the darkness of the night. And, that sounds really deep and dark. I think it's very true. You can address disagreements, and it's not just that. It's like, I think the first time we had, like literally the first conversation we had with our coach, Katie profused her love of me the whole time, crying at how amazing I was. And we left, and I was like, that was the best thing I've ever done in my life. So.
Oh, it's amazing. So, conversation, talking, like, how do you find time to talk when you're doing the morning, she's doing the evening, you're delivering wood throughout the day, or troubleshooting or whatever, she's doing her 3 jobs? Like, do you find it challenging to, you know, flesh out those conversations when you need to? Do you like put a pin in it and come back to it later? Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So what I said is, let's schedule some time on the calendar. And then I was like, man, I would dread that. And she's like, that will never work. But we do have, this is another thing, we have meetings. Katie and I have meetings on our calendar. We don't always do them, but you know the saying, like, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. Yep. You can always not go or reschedule. Mm-hmm. But financially, and again, we don't do them as regularly as we should, but we have a budget meeting, depending on, right now, obviously, like, entrepreneur kind of, so it's more frequent than it probably will be in the future, but budget meeting, we have a weekly stand up to basically talk about LLAMAWOOD and her businesses, because otherwise you're just going to talk about them at all hours. So rather than like say all the things that you're doing or that you're going to be doing or that you need help with, you know, throughout the day, just book off some time and have that focused on that. And then last is, again, that Brad Feld guy who said, topophilia, he has this retrospective with his wife once a month. It's on his calendar. It's like 4 hours. 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. the first of every month to talk about what's coming up that month and how last month went. He traveled a ton, and they were losing the opportunity of talking, and so they scheduled this 4-hour chunk to like let it all out there. And at the end of it, they hugged, and they promised that it was always like they always left that conversation and like left everything in the conversation, and they always hugged at the end to then go on. We actually really liked that idea and scheduled it, but we haven't done an official one yet. But so to answer your question, of course you have kids, you realize that like when you talk around the kids, they just get louder. So if like I'm on the phone with Katie talking, like June, our son, will just get louder and louder and louder. And so obviously it's difficult to talk when kids are around. Obviously during the workday, we're working. But we do go to lunch a good bit, especially working from home. We have a great restaurant down the street that we can walk to. But the real time that a lot of these conversations happen are in coaching. So that's an hour. I think it's actually 70 minutes or something.
You're doing that monthly, weekly?
Biweekly.
Biweekly.
Biweekly is a strange word. What does biweekly actually mean? Every 2 weeks? Or
half monthly?
Bi-monthly. What does bi-monthly mean? Every 2 months or twice a month? We'll never know. We go every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's via Zoom. But so that time, and then obviously after that time, we talk like on the way home. One time we had a really good conversation, and we went to lunch and kind of talked a little bit more about it, but it was actually a really good conversation. So we sort of just celebrated that experience over sandwiches sitting outside, and that was great. But the real time that the conversations happen is often at dinner, and often while we're on date nights. Mm-hmm. So I've had to sort of apologize to tables next to us sometimes. Sorry about that.
No.
Katie has no problem getting in there no matter where we are. I don't care about other people. Emotions really come out because you're sitting where I've always been a part of my family. I think you've been there. We love to cook. We love to eat together. Growing up, I ate breakfast every morning. It was one reason why I was tardy to school every day. Sorry, first period. Funny story, because we went to high school together. I got my senior privileges denied because I was late every morning because I ate breakfast and because I lived an hour from school. Yeah. And, I got my senior privileges denied. So then I got this great idea to bring a grill and tailgate the parking lot. No, not to be named, but that request was declined. So I never got to tailgate in the parking lot. But anyway, at the dinner table, so that's like one of the few times of the day if you share a dinner with your family or your wife. A lot of times we eat with the kids too, and then put them to bed, and then kind of sit back at the table for a little bit, maybe over ice cream or something. But you're really like one-on-one with your wife or spouse or whatever partner, and you get that kind of first time in these busy schedules to really like communicate. And sometimes it goes deeper. And in those moments where you're on date nights, going back to the stories that I tell, I want it to be this like delightful experience, and let's only focus on the positive. I love going out. It's like one of my favorite things to do. And when those conversations actually get like serious or down to like really like, let's talk about the challenges of parenting or whatever, I'm like, wait a second, I thought we were gonna have this beautiful evening. And reality is those are great times to have those conversations. So.
Man. So what about
yeah, this can be edited, right?
No, we're going with it, man. So what about technology like phones? They're just constantly driving us to pay more and more attention all day long. Do you find that the phones get in the way of your communication with you and Katie or you and the kids?
Yeah. Well, okay. So agree phones are bad. I think. I don't know what kind of science is going to come out showing what this is doing to our brains. I was thinking about cigarettes the other day and how like just 10 years ago, cigarettes were crazy, like crazy, the craze, I'm sorry. Now all of a sudden, like I hardly ever see anybody smoking cigarettes. Just 2 years ago, marijuana was the worst thing in the world. And now all of a sudden it's legal in Virginia and many other states. 1 year ago, magic mushrooms and LSD and psychedelics were crazy. And now all of a sudden they're John Hopkins, major research facility on psilocybin's effect on PTSD and resistant treatment resistant depression. So like what's going to be crazy next year that we think is totally normal today? I think that what phones do to us is probably up there. And I also think the way we treat animals, but that's a different conversation. So Katie and I actually are very conscious of phones, where besides work, neither of us are on Instagram or really any social media outside of LinkedIn. We kind of joke about screen time every once in a while. Like we brag about who has the least screen time. And often our screen time is Google Maps or sadly like Disney Plus and Rio on repeat for our son. But, we make a conscious effort to sleep without, like, neither of us typically have our phones in our room. When we dine out, often I'll look around and see people like sitting at the table, going back to like we're over there, like going deeper than I sometimes want to. And the people next to us are both like looking at their phone. Maybe that's because they're trying not to stare at us, but, and then Katie might get up to go to the bathroom and I'll like purposely try to just like sort of look out the window or like watch the cooks or watch the people make the cocktails, or if I'm at the bar, talk to the bartender, whatever. Mm-hmm. Sort of try not to bring that out. Now, it's difficult to manage when like you're getting pings from, you're having to like, be the business owner, if you will. And, that's taking more and more demand on that. But that's one reason I'm working to delegate as much like kind of email work that I need to do to other people so that I can focus on family and friends. So like having virtual assistants and whatnot that check email and respond to customer requests is something that I haven't done in the past, because a lot of times like email, when you work for entrepreneur or when you work for a company, or it's confidential. But when you are just doing something yourself, it's easier. So I'm trying to give away as much of that like pings. And actually, if you follow my newsletter, my post yesterday actually was titled, Daily Habits Make Your Phone Work for You and the Best Jacket You'll Ever Own. And the Make Your Phone Work for You was this great article from Better Human titled a reasonably detailed guide to making your phone work for you. And that is a very long post. But I said in the email that, one of the things it says is these notifications, these pings, every time you get a ping from your phone, it artificially spikes your cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone. And in men, that can reduce libido and reduce testosterone when you have chronically elevated levels of cortisol, which is no bueno. And in women, it can actually cause infertility issues. So again, wow, you have all these, a dad podcast. There are two things I heard recently that I really liked. Number one is like, they don't tell you how hard it is to get pregnant. Number two is they actually make you feel like it's the easiest thing in the world. We're taught our whole life, especially when we're young. This is a family program, but like no sex, you could get pregnant, but it's like, you actually only can get pregnant in like, there's like 3 hours of window. Sorry, scientists and people that know,
Just three,
better
just,
than me.
this is an annual 3 hours, a small 3 hour window once every 2 years biannually.
Exactly.
So listen up, high school kids.
Bi-monthly. Yeah, listen up, guys. Just it's really hard. So have at it. No, I'm probably getting the like
safe decisions, people. Safe decisions.
Safe decisions. We're not doctors, lawyers, and we don't pretend to be them on the internet. But anywho, these cortisol levels can cause anxiety, trouble sleeping. Like you name the problem, it's probably comes from cortisol. The feeling that you get when you're stressed, cortisol.
Yeah.
And so why give that to you? Even if Tyler Ross texts me, ding, on my phone, boom, all of a sudden I'm stressed out. Is that a customer complaining? Is that my boss? Is that my wife? Does my son have the throat bug again? Yeah. And so this article details exactly what you need to do in order to reduce those triggers. And I said in the article, it's really long, but you don't have to do it all the way through. I did it all the way through, but you don't have to. Try a few things, see if it works, because it could change your life. It definitely changed mine. And get away from your phone and as much as you can. It's better for your marriage. It's better for your libido. It's better for the world. And maybe one day we'll understand how bad they really are.
It's always 5 years later, right?
Exactly.
It's always 5 years later. So with the world being so different, because obviously when we were in high school, we didn't have that kind of access. And obviously, the further back we go into middle school and the rest, it's even less access. So your kids are growing up in the context of full-time act. I mean, Elon Musk talks about putting this stuff into your brain and not even having to communicate with spoken word. So tell me about the context of the world that you grew up in the context of the world that June and Margot are going to grow up in. And something that you think is an advantage you had and something you think is an advantage that they're going to have.
So I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and then moved to Fredericksburg, Virginia when I was a junior in high school. Mom and Dad, you still think that was a tough decision, but I'm here to tell you, I would never know guys like Tyler Ross if we didn't make that move. And it was the most impactful thing, I believe, in my life until obviously like getting married, having kids. Up until that point, when I was about 17. So first of all, I think that was an advantage that I had as a kid, and we have already sort of imposed that on our kids. We moved from DC to Richmond. My son has been in 3 daycares. And we took him at 9 months, we took him to Portugal for 3 weeks. So travel. Wow. And travel, Azores, a little island. We basically did nothing except hike and hang out with June. This great picture of him eating volcanic sand, black sand, like all over his face, but travel and moving and exposure to the world. I really think our biggest problem, our two biggest problems as a country, I'm a very optimistic person. I think we have amazing, there are amazing things going on and amazing things. I actually have this book. I'm not, for those watching, this book was called Bold by Peter Diamandis, who is the creator of the X Prize. The title of the book is How to Go Big, Create Wealth, and Impact the World. There's another great book called The Magic of Thinking Big. I'm
halfway through that book.
Oh, great. I'm a huge proponent of that stuff. I don't think that like happy thoughts result in happy life, but I think it's easier to be pessimistic than optimistic. And I think good things happen to optimistic people because you're looking for them. So I'm very optimistic actually about June and Margot's future, but obviously I have concerns, but I didn't watch a ton of TV growing up. I loved Alabama football. And so I basically watched college football and that's about it. And I fall asleep in pretty much every show or movie I watch, which is good now because I actually have now seen every Disney movie, or not every, but a lot of Disney movies for the first time.
First 15 minutes of it, 10
I saw
times over.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes until I fall asleep. I saw Lion King for the first time. Oh, amazing movie. Now some new ones, great ones for the kids, guys out there. If you haven't watched Rio or Luca on Disney Plus, you will love it. Anyway, so I was outside a lot, playing with my neighbors, home run derby. I loved to put a bandana around my face and like run around our grill while Dad smoked barbecue. I pretended to be like a fireman. So, this is cliche, but we had this free range parenting lifestyle where we could run around, go outside, don't come home till the sun goes down, or your foot is chopped up from your bicycle wreck because you wear Tevas when you bike. Wear closed-toed shoes, kids, when you get on a bicycle. And then we moved to Virginia, and I was an hour away from high school. I drove an hour to and from school. And for some reason, I'm feeling like our kids probably won't ever drive a car.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I don't think they'll necessarily need a driver's license. So, you can say that technology is bad and that iPhones are bad. Now, I just FYI, I'm sitting with my iPhone right here. I love my iPhone. I just believe, just like anything, it's a tool that, that you need to work for you and not own you. Your stuff ends up owning you, as they say. Your phone can own you if you let it. So just be conscious about how you use it. And that's all. But that's the thing that I think about technology is that, like Uber, you might be able to go anywhere. Like now you can we lived in DC and we used to live in Glover Park. It was really hard to get around because there's no metro up there. But now you can Uber anywhere. You can scooter. You can, like, going back to the crazy thing. One day I was biking to the metro, and then the next day I was on a scooter, like electric powered, to the metro. And I thought that exact same thing. Just last week, I was biking to the metro. Now I'm riding a motorized scooter. What am I going to be doing next week that I'll think is like, I can't believe I haven't been doing this my whole life.
Well, I've got one. Since we're on the topic of transportation, it's a hard tangent, but transportation, you can deliver babies in cars.
Oh, we have not gone there.
We haven't. We must.
Oh man. So that is crazy. So I think we'll go there, but the world that I grew up in, if you got rid of phone, I used to have to call people and say, "Hey, is my best friend in Alabama? Is Morgan awake yet?" Nope. Still asleep. Okay. So, I could text him. Now you can go anywhere you want. You can learn anything. I think that's one of the biggest things with technology. You can learn anything. You can, like, how to set up a marketing email drip campaign. YouTube, boom. What is microeconomics? Coursera, boom. Free course from Stanford. I mean, come on. So
the art of it's affecting the art of conversation to some extent, because you don't have to hash this stuff out anymore. I love the questions that can't be answered. Who would win one-on-one, Kobe or Jordan? Who would stuff like that.
Yeah. So exactly. And I think you need to make a conscious effort to have in-person connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very optimistic about June and Mario's future. I'm like, they might never hold a textbook and learn only on an iPad. They might never drive a car. They might find the cure for cancer. I think that those are things like they might be able to communicate without actually talking because they have chips in their head. They might be able to see cancer, through their Google glasses. I don't know. They might be able to. Our buddy Peter came up with this great idea that you could walk into a bar, open your phone, and he called it icebreakers. Peter, if I'm exposing your $1 million idea, I'm sorry. And if I'm actually
it's okay. Only 11 people are listening to this, and they're all related to us.
But so you walk into a bar, and all of a sudden on your phone, you have bios of everybody in the bar. So you can walk up to somebody and immediately have this connection. So there are all these great things, but with great power comes great responsibility. And of course, there are negative players out there that are going to go after that. But in COVID, I think we have learned how important real connection is. And a lot of COVID was in the winter. It started in the spring, but we all were there. We were all there from November through till March, where we couldn't spend time with family over Thanksgiving and Christmas. We spent it alone, or with our own family. We couldn't go out to restaurants. We only could get takeout. And if we did, we had to sit outside, and it was really chilly here in Virginia in February.
Yeah.
If we wanted to hang out with friends, I don't think I went into a friend's house for a very long time. So what do? You have to hang out on the porch or the backyard. Very cold. In comes fire pits. We realize that the best way to connect outside is around a fire, especially when it's cold and even when it's not cold. And fire pit sales went through the roof. Solo Stove has this article where their sales were up 300% this year versus last year, this winter versus last winter. And it made me realize actually how important human connection was. But it's really hard. It's hard to find these real, true connections, to connect over food and with your spouse, to connect with your kids, to connect with your friends, your family, or yourself. Just sitting in front of a fire, in the morning, with a coffee or a book, just the best way to kind of center yourself and it's hard. It was hard to find that the ability to connect, but it's really easy to connect around the fire. So, but I've said this too, is one time I wanted to have a fire and my wood was all the way over in the wood pile and there was snow on the ground. And I was gonna have to walk through the snow. And then I started storing my wood on my front porch and I was like, genius. I don't even have to put on socks. And so one of the things I started doing was I started delivering a couple of logs to people's front porch. Just you don't even have to go to the wood pile. I'll deliver it and stack it on your wood pile, but you don't have to go to the wood pile. So how can we make making fires much easier so that you can then connect with your kids? I grew up sitting around the fire. So that was really my childhood. My dad would turn the AC on in Alabama so that we could have a fire in October. We didn't watch movies, but we hung out by the fire and then grilling and everything. And so, I've been to a lot of concerts back when you could go to concerts where they're using microphones, those old timey microphones. Who was that? The Nora Jones was one. And then the Avett Brothers was one, the Wood Brothers, all these different Americana bands are unplugging their amps and huddling around these these original sort of microphones, or they're just turning it off completely. I saw Iron and Wine and Calico at the Ryman while I was traveling from work at my old job. And the opener was Bella Fleck and Abigail Washburn, who are just bluegrass banjo, just bandits. And she comes out in this after a set break, the lights are off, just her barefoot with this sort of coal miner's daughter dress and this spotlight on her. Actually, maybe not even a spotlight, maybe a candle. And the Ryman is one of the most famous music venues in America. It's an old church in Nashville. And she comes out to the edge of the stage and just sings a solo with no microphone, no lights, about being a coal miner's daughter. And I got kind of chills. I think the whole point of that is to say that I think that there's this resurgence of people sort of being connected all day long, but now looking for ways to disconnect. And I think there's a big craze out there about all these tech people making their own sourdough bread. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen a little bit of that.
I think one of the best sourdough bread bakers in the world is one of the Twitter founders or something. So
sounds delicious.
There is hope. You can connect. Connection is amazing. All these different movements would never have happened without this group connection, and governments have changed and policies have changed. And there's so much good about this sort of new generation looking for connection through the phone, but you still have to have the real personal in-person connections. And I think that people are purposely unplugging. So I guess, again, just kind of teach that to your kids through action. You can, you can't necessarily tell them that. You just have to show them. And if you're on your phone all the time, they're going to see that. I saw a kid one time like hold up, actually my son,
Just some random
a friend
kid,
of mine,
little shithead, somebody belonged to somebody else.
My son held up my shin guard yesterday to his ear and pretended to be on the phone.
Yeah. You see kids with books, like try to swipe it like an iPad.
Yeah.
Like they turn the page, son, turn the page.
Yeah. Yeah. Model the behavior that you hope that they continue.
Yeah. And that connection to validate that thought is why I'm excited to be doing this podcast again, to get to, this is legit connection to, even though we're, 2 hours away from each other, to get to spend time with you like this is really cool. And I'm so glad. Again, thank you for, spending time with me. It's awesome to connect here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so tell me about your drive to the hospital for Margot.
Okay. So my wife is pregnant with our second kid, of course. So December due date. And we used the midwives out of VCU. That's VCU Hospital here in Richmond. And the labor and delivery department there is beautiful. And they have this great midwife, what's the term? Whatever. They have a great team of midwives, which a midwife, again, going back to marriage coaching, it's one of those similar like dirty words, but it's effectively, it's like if you're a healthy mom, if you as long as you don't have complications on the way, and if you treat your body right, and you are just a sort of normal thing, that like pregnancy and childbirth is like what we're meant to do, what women are like, their bodies are meant to do that. So just like let it happen. Of course, it's all done in the hospital. There's always doctors around, but it's a little more relaxed. And so due date was December 9th, and I'm sorry, it was December 2nd. And we go over, and we're over a day or two or three. And Katie goes into labor on December 8th at about 7 p.m. or so. And so, I've read the birth partner, which is, if you're, one thing real quick is that if I don't understand something, I can be really scared to do it. Or if I don't feel prepared, like public speaking, great example. If I'm not prepared for a public speech, I might be more stressed out than I would if I was really prepared, or like a test or anything. So sure. I figured we're going to have this baby, our first, we might as well read a book about it and figure out like, what should I expect? So I read the birth partner, and have all the techniques of like helping Katie through labor. And then, we're calling the midwives, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's time to go in. So 3 a.m. on December 9th, 3 a.m. We go in the hospital, and it's happening. I mean, this is number 2, baby is on the way, and we get there, and Katie is just like barely dilated. And it just like kind of was so disappointing. I was like, she's been laboring for so long. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, and our first son was like 24 hours of labor, and really difficult. So she was really concerned about like being in the hospital for 24 more hours. So we're like, can we leave? Like, yeah, sure. If for those out there, if you leave before 2-hour time mark, at least at VCU, you're not considered to have been processed. So you're not actually a patient, so you can leave at any time. And people do it all the time. You'll meet a lot of moms that have come in and left. Mm-hmm. So we leave, and we come home, and Katie labors at home in our bed, and Katie's parents are here, and they've got our son, because Katie's laboring, and there's no way he'd be able to sleep through that. I'm pretty sure actually Katie woke up a neighbor, because they told us about the next day. So the in-laws and June are across the street, and at 6:30 a.m., so we're talking 3.5 hours later, Katie is like, I think like we got to go. Like and I called the hospital, like we're on our way. So we come down, and Katie gets in the car, and she's like, I'm not going to make it to the hospital. And I was like, no, they don't have babies in cars. No big deal. And she's like, no, like I go get mom. So her mom's a labor and delivery nurse. So I run in the house, like, get out here. Katie's about to have this baby. So she comes out and is like, go, y'all need to go get there. So we just like immediately start driving.
Is it just two of you in the car? Or is
Yeah.
Katie's mom with you?
It's just the two of us. So this is something that, another thing is when people hear the details, like the story is a little, it's like once you tell a secret, it's like no longer that cool anymore because now the secret's out. So when people hear the real details, they're always like, oh, okay. But Katie's in the front seat. We have two car seat bases in the back. So nobody could be back there. It was just like a go. And Katie loves to tell this part, but I went the wrong way up our street. So I had to basically go up our street, take a left, and then take another left. I'm like the FedEx truck. I'm like, do they not take lefts or they don't take rights? Whatever. So I basically went like around 3 blocks to get back to the same spot to get on the highway. And Katie's like, call, like we had a doula, call the doula. Like, I'm not going to make it. And I'm like, everything's okay. So I called the doula. I'm like, Katie is saying she's not going to make it. Doula's like, go to the emergency room. So she's like, where are y'all? I'll come to you. I was like, we're just getting on 95. She's like, okay, well, that obviously I can't meet you on 95. So just go to the emergency room, go. So we get on 95, we're going, and Katie is like pushing her feet on the floorboard under the glove compartment. And her head is like up like to the left of like she's like a pencil, like and we're in our 4Runner that we got a used but new 4Runner like a week earlier. So we're in our new 4Runner, and it has technology that our Honda doesn't have. So the seatbelt thing is like bing, bing, it's like beeping at her to buckle up. So anyway, we're driving down the highway and I'm going like 60, 65, 70. Like, I'm pretty sure I passed the police officer. So the speed limit was 70 there. And Katie goes, how much farther we have? And I'm like, it says GPS says 7 minutes. And she's like, I'm not gonna, no way. And so I was like, no, Katie, like just a little bit longer. They say that, that you don't have babies in cars. And she goes, well, this girl is about to have a baby in a car. And so she's like, now like game time. I'm driving 95 south, 70 miles an hour. And Katie is like, Hunter, I feel the head. And I'm like, she's like, I'm about to have this baby. And she's like, I feel the head. And I look down and let's just say there was like our underwear. She was still wearing underwear and this like is kind of bulging out.
Whoa.
And again, how many people listen to this? Okay. So it was like bulging. And I go, and I'm thinking like the baby's stuck. And so I'm like, well, if you're going to do it, like pull your underwear down. And so she's like, genius. And, I mean, she kind of pulls her underwear down, and I mean, head. And I'm looking down at the head, looking back at the road, looking down the head. This baby, we don't know what it is. So now I'm seeing like the baby's head for the first time, obviously. And then Katie reaches down and grabs under the armpits and just pulls her up.
No.
And it's a surprise. And so I'm like looking at the road, looking at the baby, looking at the road. And Katie goes, it's a girl. And then like the motherly instincts, like again, women, moms out there, like bow down, like we are not worthy. It was incredible. She like just starts like scooping, using her pinky to like scoop out Margot's mouth to make sure that it was clear. But Margot was, so she was 6 days late. So she was like completely pink and like just very, like, I think when the later a baby is, the less just like the less purple. And anyway, so she comes out and it's just like completely pink and just immediately goes like, meh, meh, just like almost immediately Katie scoops out her mouth and like, and immediately brings her to skin. And Katie just kept going, we're okay. Meanwhile, I missed the exit to the hospital. So we
very
get
distracting. Katie's very distracting.
74B, Margaret Campbell Guerin, 7 pounds, 19 inches, born at roughly 7:03 a.m. on 95 South, exit 74B, Richmond, Virginia. Our Christmas card says, Margot Guerin, Margaret Campbell Guerin, Margot, born 7 pounds. Yeah,
That's beautiful.
And so the first thing I do is I know babies want to be warm. In the hospital they put them on an incubator, so I immediately take off my down sweater jacket made by Patagonia, which I said is the only jacket you'll ever own. It's an incredible jacket. And so I wrapped her in this jacket. I cranked up the heat. I pull over, I call the doula, and I said, "We just had a baby in the car. It's a girl." She said, "Go to the emergency room." But before I get past this, I just let the record show that I basically had nothing to do with that birth, except that I was able to not drive our car off the road, and that Katie pulled this baby out like
at speed
at 70 miles an hour. So Margaret was born at 70 miles an hour, and she's like the chillest baby in the world. So she was like, "Guys, I'm going to come out and like, it's all going to be good."
Yeah.
And now we have all these great nicknames for her: Margot Cargo, Margot. So we pull into the hospital, we pull in the emergency room. I run inside. My wife just had, the metal detectors are going off. It's COVID. Like, I don't have my mask on. All the doctors and guards and everything have their masks on. I run through the metal detector. "Sir, wait." I'm like, "It's fine."
Trust me.
Trust me. It's okay. I'm a limo driver. If I don't get one Jim Carrey quote in here, then I failed myself. And so I'm like, "We just had a baby in the car." And they go, What? And I said, "We just had a baby in the car." And they were like, "Do you need a stroller?" And they like hand motioned a stroller because they were behind plexiglass. Maybe they couldn't hear. I was like, "No, I need a doctor." And so the doctor comes out almost immediately with like 25 nurses, and male and female here at VCU. It's shift change. So there's like tons of them. And it's like so exciting. It's like ER, a baby being born. It's like beautiful. And ER cool. Really traumatic. So all these people come out, and it's great. There's like, "Congratulations, Dad." And they put Katie and Margot on a gurney and put a blanket. And so, she's getting out of the car, like holding this baby, cord still attached. Sorry, you'll have to do an explicit content warning. And they take her up and they say, go park, Hunter. And so I drive around the corner and call Katie's parents and call my parents. And like Katie's parents just said that I was just laughing. Like I was just like, because it was like, shock and like so exciting. I just had a baby girl, and she's like so healthy, and Katie's laughing. And it was like just a very natural, it's actually, I always say that the sound of birth is like, I've never heard it before, because June was born in a hospital with like other people saying like, "Push, push." And then like, as he comes out, like, "Oh, here he comes." And in the car birth, it's just like, you and mom and now a baby. And it was like crazy. It was like, we left the house. There was, of course, 3 people, with Margot in the belly, but like we left our house with 2 people in the car. A lot of dads say this, and I agree. It's like when the baby comes out, it's like all of a sudden there's another person in the room. It's just a strange experience. It's incredible, but it's like there were 2 people in this car and now there are 3. Like, what? But it was very intimate, private birth, to say the least. And
with exception to the other cars on the road.
Yeah. No, but fortunately it was like 7 a.m. on what day was that? Whatever. I feel like it was a weekend, but anywho, it was 7 a.m. So it wasn't super busy. So it was and then we pulled over on 74B, which is, I believe, Franklin and 12th Street in Richmond, downtown Richmond, because we're right next to VCU Hospital. And it's COVID. Like, have you ever been downtown DC or downtown Richmond or wherever you live, downtown Warrenton, in COVID in the morning? I mean, nobody is there. So it's just like emptiness. And, they say you want to follow the like traffic laws when you're driving to the hospital, because like you don't want to get in a wreck. And so meanwhile, Katie is holding this baby wrapped in the jacket with the heat on, and I'm like sitting at the stoplight just waiting on it to turn green. Oh man.
That's wild, man. So we've talked for a long time, and I feel like we could do a 6-part series and just wrap. And that's before we even got to dadding, or like I want to talk to you about LlamaWood more and more. But in the interest of us going to lunch and the audience, I want to jump into some of my the questions that I ask everybody at the end. Have you listened to one of these? Do you have any idea what's coming up? Okay, perfect. So I have this list of questions that I like to hear what everybody has to say, and it sometimes inspires some interesting thoughts. So the first question is, what gift, money, time, space, no object at all, what gift would you give to every father on the planet?
Money, time, space, no object.
No object.
I want to go deeper, but at the same time, I'm going to go back to our first kid, June. So one thing real quick, actually, I'm going to give you 2 things. Number one is I always wanted to write a book, and you're actually the author. So you want to do it together. Let's talk.
Let's go.
It's titled How to Parent Your First Like It's Your Second.
Interesting.
And so I would give them that book because I would interview all of my friends and family that have had at least 2 kids and be like, what on your second kid did you do differently than your first? And, I would say having a baby in a car, apparently they're really chill babies. No, but I'm going to use a recommendation from our good friend, our mutual friend, Stephanie Bell, is I would give them the Kikaroo. I think it's called the Kikaroo Donut or the Kikaroo Peanut. And it is a changing table pad that is like this crazy material. I think it's like foam, but with like antibacterial, anti-moisture wicking, or moisture wicking, not anti-moisture wicking, antibacterial, moisture wicking, wipe down baby changing table. And it fits right on top of your dresser in your nursery. And if you have a boy, June, for whatever reason, every time we took off his diaper, he peed on us and just went everywhere, and like you're using the new diaper as a shield, and it just gets all over your changing table. You already do so much laundry with babies, like you're washing onesies, sleep sacks, burp cloths, you name it. So why wash your changing pad sheet? I've seen some changing pads that have a fitted sheet and they look beautiful, but I highly recommend and would give you a Kikaroo Peanut baby changing table. Thank you very much, Stephanie Bell.
Why wouldn't everything be made out of that?
Yeah, seriously.
All right. So when in your life do you feel the most love? Sitting around the campfire, LLAMAWOOD.com. Thank you very much.
Sitting around the campfire, LLAMAWOOD.com. Hey, like on that front, guys out there, I don't know how many of you have a pile of wood that I'm going to stack it. I'll stack it. Don't worry. I'll stack it. That never gets stacked. And let us bring you that wood and stack it for you. I will say, I was just texting about a drop and go, and it's like, oh, I thought y'all were going to stack it. I'm like, choose stacked, folks.
It's just an option on the website. Very easy to use website.
It's an option on the website. It's instant, and you get an instant price on it. It takes us a lot longer, and actually it's a lot easier to do drop and goes, but from a customer experience, have us stack it. No, but the most love I feel like I felt was at our wedding. Yeah. So when in life, when you're surrounded by friends and family, the most important people in your world, if you have any wedding anxiety, there's going to be 100 or 200 or 50 or 5 or whatever people watching me stand there, like give my vows. And then you look out and it's like all of the closest friends and family on the planet. And like to have that many people surround you. So the wedding was like the the discrete moment, but my good friend Hunter Knowles married my friend Kevin Smith, and we are all Clemson Tigers, and we all love Dabo Sweeney. And he gives this speech that says life is, like there's going to be really exciting moments like a wedding or a baby or a big vacation or a promotion or a new car. And those are great. But like life is really about the moments in between, because 99.9% of your life are the small moments every day with your wife and kids and your friends and family. And your life is, you remember the big things, but you are personally kind of defined as by the small things. And so that was a moment of like extreme love. But then along the way, I have an amazing wife. It was extremely supportive. I have amazing kids. I mean, when my son looked at me and said, "Dad, I'm having a great day." I mean, the guy was strapped into a car seat for like 8 hours, throwing up in a trash bag. And that's unconditional love right there. I mean, dogs, I think I hear dogs do it. We don't have one, but just those small moments, if you have, sometimes it's hard to quote the Nobel Prize in Literature winner, Ferris Bueller, is sometimes you have to slow down because life will pass you by. Sorry, again, I don't watch movies, so I don't know if that's the exact quote, but those small moments in life, there's a lot of love out there if you listen to it. There's that great New York Times thing about this like concert violin player. Like I'm talking one of the best violin players in the world, goes down to the New York subway and kind of dresses up like a homeless person or whatever, and plays like Mozart, and like nobody stops to listen. They just like walk right by. Maybe they throw $1 in. But it's like we're so busy sometimes to not actually see the beauty in the world. So slow down and let the love in, guys.
Love it. I love it.
I've had too much water this morning. Woo.
Have you seen Jimmy Fallon do the busking on the subway?
No.
Yeah, it's a similar thing where they'll get like Maroon 5, and they'll all dress up like homeless people. They look like characters, so it's not as, people can see through the masks and everything, so it's not as fun. But the concept is a fun concept.
Yeah, I need to watch that because Jimmy Fallon shares my experience. He shares my dad experience of, he had a baby in the lobby of his apartment building. And apparently there's a whole story about it, and like it made it on his show. So I need to watch more Jimmy Fallon because
doesn't hold a candle to 70 miles an hour missing your exit. I'd love to think of like your Garmin or Siri or something going, turn missed, turn around.
Yeah. Take a U-turn. I actually butt dialed my mother-in-law. Like, you cannot make this up. I butt dialed my mother-in-law, and like most of our car ride is recorded as a voicemail. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
We're going to do everything we can to get our hands on that audio, people. So we'll upload this.
Never before heard outside of this family.
That's amazing. All right. This isn't on my list, but I'm curious to know your kids are young. June is 2? 3. So what's a piece of advice that you've gotten that you haven't been able to, put into play yet? Or that you're anticipating putting into play?
Piece of advice that I'm anticipating. I think this is great. A great one. I am very passionate about education. I tutor a boy named Deion Sanders. First of all, how about that name? Second of all, hey Deion, I've been tutoring him in DC since he was in kindergarten, and now he is going into 9th grade.
Wow.
It's incredible. And, number one, I learned a lot about parenting from working with him. This is a little bit out of your question, but maybe, oh man, I got to send this to you. If I read it, it's kind of long. I'd probably cry.
Yeah.
So I won't do that. But there's this thing in Dale Carnegie talks about and how to win friends and influence people. Great book recommendation for dads out there.
Classic.
Basically talk to people about what they're interested in, like you're doing. Talk to people about themselves, because everybody wants to talk about themselves, like you're doing. One day, let's reverse the script and
Dude, let's do
on
it.
my podcast.
I did that with Stephen once, and it was fun. And that was 2.5 years ago. So it's a completely different person now.
If you teach me the ways of podcasting, and I promise we will reverse the script here. But anyway, I learned a lot. And the thing in this book is called Father Forgets, I think. Father Forgets or Father Forgives. And it's hard to read because the dad is sitting on the bed while the son sleeps, and the dad just starts apologizing for like not doing this or not doing that. And of course we've all I think we've all felt that at some point of like, you think about when they're 1, like June's 3, Margot's about to be 10 months, and you look back and you go like, what would I have done differently? Like up to 1, and then it's up to 2. And, so maybe advice that I have given myself, that sometimes is hard to implement is like, just slow down and like, really just like, who cares, like stop caring so much about anything else and just like care only about the kids, and I think that's a big one. Just like nothing else matters. Really, it really doesn't. The health and the happiness and your family and your kids. And so just like know that a lot more than I probably, know it. But the other one was, okay, so education, I think is really important. And I went to private school, it's how I met you through high school. And then I went to a public university, Clemson University. Great school. A very different life. I'd graduated with 32 people from Highland. And I graduated with thousands and thousands of people from Clemson. And so public school versus private school is a big question that we have. I grew up in private school from 5th grade on, and my wife went to public school all the way through high school to college, and even I think she went to a private grad school. Is American private? Well, we'll have to Google it.
Yeah.
Okay, so she has a little private school in there.
At least they charge tuition like it's private. I think it's anyway. Yeah.
So it's like, all right, in DC, one of the reasons we moved is because we really wanted June to go to public school, and the public elementary school in our neighborhood was great. And then just the private school, the middle school is okay. And then you also you get into lotteries and all that stuff. So there's some certain schools that we would like to get into. And so we were gonna have to move. And then those neighborhoods, the housing prices are much higher. So we're like, let's go somewhere cheaper that has good public schools. Anyway, so there's this like thing about public school versus private school. And I never really thought about this question until I had kids. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you send them to? And so we're saying to all the friends, like, where are you going? What are you going to do? And I went to private school, and do I want to send my kids to Highland? Great school. I love Highland. Hello, all the Highland people. I can imagine that there's a good bit of you listening out there. And gosh, it was an incredible high school. And that's one reason why it's such a good question, is like, the friends that I have from Highland are some of the best friends of my life. And I see that a lot in small classes, like people stay really close. Yet at the same time, public school is you pay tax dollars for it, and like you want to be a part of the community, and you can walk to all of them from our house. And so, my wife is very pro public school. I'm kind of like, I never really thought about it until now. And so I was talking to a friend, and his advice was, well, have you ever asked them? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, what? He's like, just like when it gets time, ask them, do you want to go to private school?
I'm on with Hunter right now. Okay. Yeah, that's my dad. You want to come say hi to Hunter? We're actually recording the podcast right now, so you'll get to be listened to. Hey, Hunter.
Hey there. Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. This is great. What are you guys talking about? Any secrets that I need to understand and know?
Well, it's all going to be out there. So no
In other words, I
secrets.
have to wait with every other schmo, huh?
Yeah. No, it's Tyler's been great. I'm letting it all out. So
All right, good deal. That's great. All right, take care. Good to see you. All right,
Good to see you.
Lunch in a couple minutes. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So bottom line is ask your kids, what do they want? It's not all about like you figuring it all out for them. What do you want to go to this school or that school? Maybe they're like, I'm on a great soccer team. I want to stay at this school. No big deal. Awesome. So I've asked him many other questions, but I've yet to get to ask him where he wants to go to school. And so that's, I will implement that piece of advice when we get to that point.
There's something to be said for that and having that conversation, because I don't think we give kids enough credit for how smart they are. And what harm is it in asking the question, letting them not think at all about it or think critically about it? Because ultimately, 3, 5, 7, 9-year-old kid, it's just input. It's just more information. So maybe they definitely have a perspective we don't have. The stuff that my kids tell me or express or perceive, just like, oh my gosh, I wish I was more like you sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes like, thank God you don't have the power of the steering wheel.
Yeah.
All right. So what are 3 adjectives or characteristics required for someone to be a super dad?
Okay, first of all, you're testing my understanding of the English grammar. So that is not a requirement.
No.
Being a super dad. I feel like the way that I would answer this is, I think a question that Katie and I talk about is like, what do you want to teach? If you could pass over any of your qualities, or if they get one of your qualities, what would you want it to be? Again, like maybe bleep this out if you have to school me on what an adjective is, but is funny an adjective?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think optimism.
Okay.
I think a level of silliness. These are like my personal things. Not every super dad has to have these, but maybe my view of a super dad: optimistic, silly, and honest. I think sum it up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. The billboard question. You're going 70 miles an hour on 95, missing exit 74A, and now you're at 74B, but you big billboard on the highway, and you're going to blow by it, but you have an opportunity to give a message to every parent out there. So it fits on the billboard, read it at speed. What's that message to all the dads out there say?
Okay, so first of all, again, you have the editing power, but I am a huge Tim Ferriss fan.
Yeah, that's his question.
Hence I don't know if I mentioned, but my goal in life was to be on a podcast. So like you've made it. Yeah, I've made it now. And he asked this question. I feel like I'm on Tim Ferriss right now. So thank you. Okay, so you know what? Funny enough, he asked this question to everybody, and I've never really thought about my own, and certainly don't remember everyone's. So I'll have to come up with one. But yours is a little different because this is like, what would it say to a parent or a dad?
Mm-hmm.
I'm 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 an indecisive person, so can I give you two?
Sure. Sure.
3. Okay, the first
No,
one.
we're back to 1. We're negotiating.
1.
Come
Okay,
on.
in negotiation though, we should hit the middle, and I should keep 2.
All right, we're back at 2.
Okay, I'll stay at 2. All right, the first one is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Because I think any message to give to a parent is a message to give to everybody. Tim Ferriss, our friend, recommends this book about training a dog, and it's called Don't Shoot the Dog, I think. And he reads it about interacting with people. Like, the way that you treat a dog is the way that the saying that the way you do anything is how you do everything. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And the other one is, I love this. I don't know why it would necessarily be applicable to parents, but I am an old man who has known many troubles. Most of them never happened. And that's Mark Twain.
A lot of confused, thoughtful drivers.
Yeah, that's a lot of words.
What does that mean exactly?
It's hard to have a baby and read that at the same time. But, you probably worry as a parent, you probably worry about so many things. And public school or private school, should I have this baby in the hospital or in the car? I am so worried about choking. Like, I blend all of Margot's food to the, like Katie said, the smithereens. I blend the smithereens out of it. And we know a lot of problems. We know a lot of work. We know a lot of troubles as dads, but most of them never actually happen. So lighten up.
Love it. All right. Who's your favorite fictional dad?
Fictional dad. I loved I'm gonna go with Jim Carrey, man. I have to. And Liar Liar, the dad. Liar. Now, folks listening out there, I don't love liars, but I was just thinking of this the other day, where he is like hanging out with his son, and the mom is now dating another guy because they're separated in the movie. At the beginning of the movie,
no, spoiler alert.
Don't listen from hour 3 till 3:15 if you don't want to hear the ending of Liar Liar. But when the guy gives the son a baseball glove, and he goes, or no, when Jim Carrey gives his son a baseball glove, and the new boyfriend goes, "Great gift, Dad," and then Jim Carrey looks at him and goes, "Thanks, son." No, but I love that story. He was like I love Jim Carrey, and he's silly, he's optimistic, and he's honest in that movie. So there you go. Perfect example of a dad.
Right. You still got the monologue from Ace Ventura teed up in your head?
Absolutely.
All right, you ready?
Do you have it?
Oh yeah, you ready?
Oh man.
Let's do it together. Let's do it together.
3.
1. What you wouldn't read about that one?
Oh,
you got that one?
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. Go back. 1.
What you wouldn't read about is how Ray Finkel lost his mind.
It
Was committed to a mental hospital only to escape and join the police force under the assumed identity of missing hiker manipulating his way to the top in a diabolical scheme to get even with him and be blamed for the entire thing. Oh, what was the other one you had?
The other one is, what do you know? So you just say it. What do you know about Ray Finkel? Go ahead.
That one.
Soccer style kicker, graduated Collier High, June 1976. Stetson University honors graduate class of 1980. Holds 2 NCAA Division I records, 1 for points, 1 for distance. Former nicknamed the Mule, the first and only ever pro athlete to come out of Collier County and won a hell of an All-American.
I don't have that one. That's great. All right, here. And that's a good way to send us off to our last question.
Okay.
All right.
I love it.
Generations of Guerins may listen to this podcast. what is something that
All
you would
right.
share? What is something you would share with them? Every generation of Guerin is just something that you'd like for them to know from you.
I would say your mom is the most incredible person on the planet. However, I want you all to be your own truth and don't try to do anything don't be anything that you aren't, and don't, be true to yourself. And it can be whatever. I played soccer. I love soccer. I hope our kids play soccer, but if they want to play cello instead, great. Some of my favorite entrepreneurs out there are one majored in political science, one majored in East Asia studies. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to do anything any particular way. So your mom is incredible, but you don't have to worry about trying to fill her shoes. Just this matriarch of this family would want you to explore and be whoever it is you want to be.
Beautiful. Let's wrap it up. Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you, man. I'm interested in what people listening to this are going to think. Most especially this wife of mine. There could be some interesting dinner conversations.
Well, I haven't gotten to spend a lot of time. We're still recording, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll stop in just a second. But I mean, maybe Katie's got to be the next. Maybe she's got to be a guest on here.
I'm learning to dad. I mean, hey, I think marriage coaching, great example. I'm learning to mom. I'm learning what it is to be a mom.
Yeah.
And she's learning what it is to be a dad. And I think that's, they each have their unique challenges. And the more and more you talk about it, the more and more like this, I just had a feeling that I was going to have my walls are all crumbling down as we speak. Because, these are great questions. And I think that it's super important that people talk about this stuff. I just went to lunch with my neighbor, Tim, and I'm sorry if this, I'm like asking him all these deep questions over barbecue. Like, what are your values? And like, how are you feeling about like being a dad? And are you just going deep? And I'm like, sorry, man. He's like, no, it's like, this is great. Like, guy time, dads out there, like schedule time with other dads and just guy friends. Be a dad 99.9% of the time. Be there for your family 99%. Even when you're with friends, you're there. But block off a designated chunk of time. My father-in-law is great about this 4-hour like round of golf every Saturday. But then is like super dad, every other second of every other day and day in and day out. And it's like really important to like block off that time, just like you block off time without a phone or whatever, to share in these experiences. And because like, yeah, I mean, this connection I think is like, again, going back full circle. It's like really, really important, and friends and this support team that you build is going to be there for you when you decide to do crazy things and when you decide to do very boring things. Like Mitch Hedberg likes to come over to his friend's house and make sure that they don't start loading shit into a truck. He said, I like to help people stay put. Basically, that means I come over and I make sure that my friends don't start loading shit into a truck. I'm like, you need friends like that. You need friends to come over and just hang out and make sure you don't start loading shit in a truck. Like sometimes you're great right where you are. And a lot of times friends can help you realize that.